Good morning, Hampton Roads. I am Heather McLaughlin with Timmons Group. Welcome to Commercial Coffee Virtual Edition. Today's program has been approved by AIA Continuing Education Units. To request your CEU, visit the virtual events page on Timmons Group website following this program. You have about a week to do that. To submit questions during the program, please use the Q&A button at the center of your screen. Now, on to our program. Over the years, we have enjoyed coming together monthly to visit new and renovated spaces around Hampton Roads. Today, in the comfort of your own space, grab a cup of coffee and join us as we hear from our leaders around Hampton Roads. Let me introduce our moderator for today, Mark Richardson. He is the principal in charge of Timmons Group Hampton Roads office. Mark.
Thanks, Heather. Good morning, everyone. Timmons Group, along with our partners at Williams Mullen, I'd like to welcome everybody to a very different commercial coffee this month. Certain you'll find it to be very informative. For anybody who's new to our events, every month we gather, we share a cup of coffee and learn about the latest projects and renovations within our Hampton Roads community. It's a great opportunity to see some amazing designs and get to network at the same time. Like most things that are post-COVID, we've had to modify our format a little bit for today's program. So in the future, we're looking forward to bringing you some virtual tours, so keep an eye out for those invitations. Unfortunately, for today, we did not get Starbucks to be able to deliver to your home, so I hope everybody has plenty of their favorite brew on hand, and then we'll go ahead and kick things off. I'd like to thank all of our panelists for taking the time to be with us today. I'm really excited to hear their thoughts on how the real estate development is changing in this new environment. They have some very unique insights on how each jurisdiction is adjusting, how they're doing business, how they're keeping development moving. It would also be very helpful to get a snapshot into the commercial residential markets for each of these localities. So today's format will be about a 5 to 8 minute presentation from our panelists with a Q&A after. You'll see that there's a panel down to the bottom where you can ask questions. Please do. We'll try to get everything loaded up and run through. With that, I'd like to introduce our panelists. We have quite a comprehensive list, as you can see. First up is Robert Moore. He is the Director of Economic Development for the City of Portsmouth. Next, we have Jared Chalk, Economic Development Director for the City of Norfolk. Chris Morello, Director of Economic Development at Isle of Wight County. Raymond Wight is the Business Development Coordinator with the City of Virginia Beach. Next up is Kevin Hughes, Director of Economic Development for the City of Suffolk. And last but not least, we have Stephen Wright, Director of Economic Development at the City of Chesapeake. Phew. The long list. Thank you guys for attending. We really appreciate that. Robert, I guess you're up first. If you would go ahead and get us kicked off.
All right. Well, thank you, Mark. First, let me say good morning to the business community here on the webinar. Let me say also this morning, good morning to my colleagues on the panel and certainly to the Timmons Group. Thank you, Heather, Mark, Joe, I know you're on the line as well. Thank you for the opportunity to have such an event. You know, we realize, and first and foremost, let me say that, you know, we realize there are challenges going on in the business community. And we want everyone to know, and I'll speak on behalf of my colleagues briefly, that we are all open for business. All of our localities are ready to serve and do what we need to do to keep this economy going here regionally. From a Portsmouth standpoint, certainly Portsmouth economic development is open for business. Things have changed, and how we do things will change and continue to change. But everything from plan submittal to permit review to use permit review, it's all different now. When you look at how we submit plans, how plans are submitted to the planning department, we have a drop box now currently located at City Hall. When it comes to sending those in, it could be via mail as well, so you can send them in via UPS or FedEx. And if push comes to shove and there is still a challenge to get those things in, our office has stepped in to help individuals submit plans as necessary. Our boards and commissions, our Economic Development Authority and our Portsmouth Port Industrial Commission are also available. We are beginning to meet virtually starting in May. That also leads to other public meetings such as Planning Commission. We have had internal discussions, and those discussions have led us to believe that we could have our first potential planning meeting, planning commission meeting in July. So there's some opportunities there, and we're looking forward to pushing forward. A lot of things are in the pipeline that we need to get done, and we have to get done. But I also say, with the caveat that that is currently the situation. Things change daily, and this situation is fluid, and certainly things will come about that will change how we do what we do. For example, later today, our General Assembly and our governor will hopefully, we anticipate, sign into law what we consider to be historic legislation for the Commonwealth and more specifically for Portsmouth, and I'll say for my colleagues in Norfolk, which is the casino legislation, SB 36 and HB 4. That will certainly change how and what we do as we go forward, as we look to add another layer of responsibility and another layer of approval. We're going to have to also add another way that we can get things done in a timely manner to keep that project going forward. So we're excited about where we are. We're excited about what we can do. But more importantly, we are here to assist the business community as best we can. We certainly are working from home, and meetings like this are the new face-to-face, but we understand that we need to be here. I don't want to take up too much more time, so what I'll do is I'll put all of my contact information, all the team's contact information in our chats section of the video. But again, thank you to the team at Timmons and again, my colleagues for having us come together.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Next up is Jared Chalk. Jared, take it away.
All right, thank you, Mark. And I echo a lot of the things that Robert said in terms of economic development. And, we're still here working hard, trying to keep businesses moving, trying to keep operations going in each city. And we also have moved pretty much entirely electronic. So our site plan review, again, is electronic. Reviewers follow the same processes, same caveats, but everything is to be submitted electronically. We're doing field inspections for building safety by FaceTime, videos, third-party inspections. One of the big things we're doing now is we are allowing third-party inspections as a routine practice. So that's continuing to keep things flowing out in the field. And then for final inspections, electrical permits, gas line inspections, things like that, I would say just the business community and the construction community, have a great dialogue with your inspector. And then, they will come out, they will actually do field inspections under certain circumstances on site. But we do have to keep things pretty safe for our field inspectors. In terms of city operations and our planning commission and city council, we have a little bit unique. The governor did declare that you could have virtual meetings related to the coronavirus pandemic or anything that is deemed essential. Our attorney has taken that word essential and said basically routine zoning requests and conditional use permits can be conducted virtually. So you may have read in the paper, Costco recently was voted on through our city council. The interpretation there was, they were selling items that will worsen the negative effects of the pandemic, right? And so we wanted to continue to see that go through. We're also looking at not just how a project impacts the city as a whole, but how it, will impact the small business. So if somebody's, building a couple houses and delaying the, construction or the rezoning for that, those two houses will worsen the negative impact on economic activity in the city. We deem that as essential. So it's a little bit probably more loose interpretation than some attorneys are looking at it, but it's really allowing us to continue to hold our planning commission meetings virtually and our city council meetings virtually. So again, we're here. I would say, if there are issues, this is why economic development departments exist, right? So if you find yourself in a situation where projects are not getting through, or you're having some challenges in terms of dealing with the city or getting something through a city process, reach out to your economic development director, reach out to the team, and we're here. We'll answer the phone, and we'll try our best to get things through the process. But times have certainly changed. Hopefully we'll get back to a normal here sometime in the next several months. But for right now, the worst thing government can do is slow down or further contract and put a damper on economic activity. So we're working hard to do anything we can to stimulate businesses.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Appreciate you adding that little bit in there about who to contact. We'll probably get into some more of that in the Q&A. Up next is Chris Morello, Director of Economic Development for all of Wight County.
Morning, everybody. Great to be with you. Timmons, thank you very much for asking me to be on. I feel like I'm adding a little spice as the only county this morning. I wanted to say, first off, folks on this panel and the others who are economic development professionals in our region. I mean, I've never been more proud to be part of this profession because of the way I've seen super quality, professionals really work hard to make sure that there are good, robust responses coming from their departments, from their localities, to help these businesses who are clearly suffering. And so obviously we along with all the other jurisdictions, are doing our best to be facilitators when it comes to understanding loan programs, congressional action coming down the pike, and so on and so forth. So I certainly echo what my colleagues have already said about our connectivity to the business world, how we may have pivoted a little bit here from big project management related activities to more of the, the touch to our business community out of necessity. But I also think, and this may or may not be true for every jurisdiction, but what it's done is it's created opportunities to merge our efforts with others who work in the business world on behalf of the business community, like our chambers of commerce. So we're doing a lot of work with our chamber of commerce that we wouldn't normally have done. What I hope to see is that that's really trending as part of our future and not just a temporary situation. And getting more to the kind of the plans, examination, permitting focus, which I know that we're trying to do today. We are fully digital now. We have a great IT director with some very talented people who have helped make sure that our community development function and planning and zoning and inspections are all under the community development umbrella, which is a separate department from me. They have gone completely digital since April 9th. They've actually put out to the development and A&E community that, look, we would encourage you, if at all possible, to submit plans digitally. We can deal with you all on submittals digitally coming back. Basically, the only places where we're seeing that we need actual signatures is from a stormwater perspective, where you really do have to get on plats, actual signatures and that sort of thing. But short of that, it looks like we're able to continue from this point forward going totally digital. Doesn't mean we won't take regular plans, because while we've got our doors closed and we're open for business, our community development department has a drop box on the outside of the door, and people are using that. So certainly that is still we function that way. But a good example of where we've gone digital very quickly and pivoted to that is with our inspections. So our chief inspector is using Google Duo along with some other technologies, even Skype. Has anybody heard of Skype lately? Zoom, it seems like Zoom and everything else. Haven't heard about Skype much lately, but it's being used by our inspections department to do remote inspections. So it'd be interesting to see, I think, how we use that more in the future. It's still preferable in many cases to do on-site, inspections instead of these virtual ones. But the point being, there may be avenues in the future for efficiency's sake where we can use that technology more than we have in the past. When it comes to actual permits being issued, we've been going gangbusters like we have, and with marginal increases year over year for many years now through the first quarter. So we do expect some backing off of those numbers going into this quarter. When we see that reflected, we won't be surprised by that, of course. But as most folks know in this region, Isle of Wight County is still going strong with respect to residential construction. We've got over 1 million square feet in the pipeline, and some of it already under construction at this point. We've had 2 rezonings in the last 4 months for major residential developments. So we see that continuing forward. I wanted to say, when I spoke with our stormwater division to prepare for this, there was a very interesting kind of matter that we hadn't really seen before, having to do with stormwater permitting. And that too really hasn't slowed down, we've been told. But, you know, for the county's sake anyway, VDOT and VDOT related changes to the streetscape having to do with residential development, oftentimes VDOT related stormwater changes and county regulated stormwater changes converge. And in these last several weeks, what we've been seeing is some of the developers trying to line up funds to make sure they're able to do bonding. They've had to kind of make sure they're keeping pace with VDOT. So we don't see that often where people are trying to keep pace with VDOT, but that's been the case for us. And but in total, I think we're seeing basically same sort of activity we've been seeing prior to the COVID activity. So our EDA has not met. We haven't had a compelling reason to meet in the last 2 months, but our Board of Supervisors has been meeting. They have not been meeting virtually. They have been keeping with the 10-person rule. There are only 5 elected officials on our Board of Supervisors. So between them and staff, they have been allowing people to come in and speak or give presentations, but they have not had a need to have a virtual meeting at this stage. So from that perspective too, it's felt like business to some degree as usual. We'll see how things go moving forward. And we are looking at this Thursday, actually, the Board of Supervisors is looking at suspending for a 60-day period numerous tax penalties and interest that folks would normally incur if they were paying late. So they haven't taken that action, but all indications are they are going to do that, which could really mean a lot for our business community. So I guess I'll leave it at that and let you all move forward. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Chris. I think there's a lot of people very interested to hear how jurisdictions may be handling some of those fees and fines that, you know, in the past have been assessed and maybe a little more lenient now. So that is one thing I'm sure a lot of people would like to hear about. Up next is Raymond Wight. He's Business Development Coordinator for City of Virginia Beach. Raymond?
Hey, good morning. Thanks so much to Timmons for putting this on today and giving us an opportunity to give updates of what's happening in our community. Our focus has been on, since this started, on our existing business community. We want to keep them up. We want to keep them running. Obviously, with some of the restrictions that the state has put down, that's been extremely difficult to do. So what we've done, along with federal and state programs and some local programs, we've connected our companies with these resources that will help them to keep their jobs secure for their employees, even though they may temporarily be furloughed, be able to pay them until things come back. We've also done a survey with our businesses, got a great response on how we can help as an economic development within the community here. And again, I think there's a lot of confusion on, there's so many programs that are coming up. Some of them are running out of money. They're getting money again. It's just very confusing. Obviously, technology infrastructure at the state and federal level is somewhat antiquated. So there's been a lot of frustration among our companies too on that. But we've also worked with Old Dominion, their Women's Center. We have a resource office that twice a week they come in, and businesses can come and meet with them and ask for their assistance in helping to plug into a lot of the resources. Within the community as a whole, certainly tourism now is almost getting towards the height of the season. That's going to affect us tremendously moving forward. We project that about tourism for this year will be down about 50%, and that restaurant income will be about 25% of what it typically is. And that's a substantial hit to our economy. So what council has done is, basically waive some of the fees and taxes right now. Certainly, you've heard they can sell liquor on pickup and mixed drinks and so forth. Anything just to generate business. So that's a key effort that's going on that's helping our community. As far as planning and permitting, we basically have a skeleton staff within the office, within our department. We have about 4 or 5 people in per day. Everybody else is working from home. We rotate in, so you can talk to a live person. If you call our desk and need to talk to somebody specifically, they can forward the call to our cell phones and connect with us fairly easily. Again, from a permitting standpoint, we've been all digital for quite some time now. So the process of applying for permits and right-of-way access and so forth, you can get that started right online. So certainly that's a big benefit for developers and for folks that are expanding. Interesting thing as far as is new business. Many of you probably remember Rick Weddle, who was the head of Heretta here for a couple years. The group he's with just put out an article the other day, Site Selectors Guild, and said that from their surveying around the country, about 50%, 52% of the new business from site consultants are down right now. So again, I think it's even more important to work with our existing businesses if they were planning on expanding. Again, hopefully some of these resources will help them to at least keep the plans on the table, if not push them back a little bit. Some of the areas that have done good with us that really haven't been hit substantially have been government contracting. As we all know, that's a big area throughout our communities. And right now, that certainly hasn't taken nowhere near the hit as others. And we're certainly fortunate to have that. The port has certainly shifted their business to more bringing in emergency medical supplies from all over the country. And that's taken priority from their standpoint. But overall, we're just adjusting, keeping our ears opening, looking for opportunities, as we'll talk about more a little bit later in the program.
Great, thank you very much. You do bring up a good point about the digital submittals, and I think we were so much farther along if this had occurred 10 years ago, where we would have been trying to scramble to do any of the things that we're doing today. I think it was great foresight for a lot of the jurisdictions to have all those things in place, see where technology was taking it. I think Chris brings up a good point, even starting to see, how is this going to affect business going forward? Are we still going to do all these things the same way, or will it keep, evolving and pushing things in new directions? Thank you very much. Up next, Kevin Hughes, Director of Economic Development for the City of Suffolk. Kevin.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here talking about what's happening in Suffolk. From a permitting perspective, we're still seeing a lot of activity. We're accepting plans via PDF or Dropbox. If you want to still do paper, you're able to do that. Drop it off through our loading dock. We're just going to make it sit for a couple of days. Our planning department has listed all their planners' contact information. You can find it off of our main site as well as the planning department site. Our site is yessuffolk.com. So there's a lot of good information there too. We're still accepting rezoning packages. At this stage, all we're able to do is get you through that first phase, which is the staff review land use, which sometimes takes a little bit of a couple of months or some interaction. So we're still able to make some headway, but everything's sitting until we figure out planning commission, city council. So please continue to communicate with us and our planning staff. We've morphed our Friday morning meetings, which we've been doing for quite some time. We've known them as pre-submittals, where we bring all of our planning staff, our public works, our public utilities, and others around to work folks through due diligence or comment review. We've shifted that to a WebEx format. So you can use myself or Greg Bird in economic development to get on our Friday morning format. So we're continuing those. We do 3 every Friday. Those have been very busy since we kind of stood those up a couple of weeks ago. From a submission perspective, that has not slowed down at all. And so we're continuing to ask for patience because our interest and projects has been very high. And so juggling how to handle some of these new permits and things of that nature is definitely a challenge, but one that we're up for. The good news from our planning staff is we have a really young planning staff, and so they're able to be very nimble and understand technology really well, and maybe bring some others on that weren't so much. And so we're really excited that regardless of this pandemic, that there's still an opportunity to continue development. We're excited to share some new industrial stuff that we're working on. The residential still continues to come in forward. We are able to do on-site inspections. That's an interaction with your different inspector, depending on the trade. What we're going to ask you to do is clear the building and work with that one trade specifically. And so just to create some distance, in some certain circumstances, we are allowing third-party review, but that just needs to be a communication and interaction with our staff. And so we continue to be open and doing the best that we can, and we appreciate everybody's patience during these interesting times. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate that. And last but not least is Stephen Wright, Director of Economic Development, City of Chesapeake. Stephen.
Good morning, everybody. Certainly want to thank Timmons and the team. Mark, you got a great staff over there. Thanks for putting this on. Really happy to be here this morning to tell you about what's going on in Chesapeake. I'm going to say a lot of what my colleagues have already said. We're open for business. Plan review and inspections are continuing just like they did before. I will tell you, we're actually able to maybe be a little bit quicker. I spoke with Jay Tate over in our inspections and permit department the other day, and he said it's amazing how much work you can get done when you don't have citizens coming in and interrupting the plan reviewer. So things are moving at a little bit of a quicker pace right now. The city is open for business. We encourage everyone to continue to use eBill. That's our digital permitting and inspection portal. That has been a godsend for times like this. There is a drop box at City Hall building. As you enter the building, you can't go very far, but you can go in and drop plans off at City Hall in Chesapeake as well. I think a lot of you know Tim Howlett. He is our development services coordinator. If you have a project and you'd like to get a pre-submittal meeting done, we are still doing those from a digital standpoint. So please contact Tim Howlett and he can facilitate that meeting as well. You know, things are moving pretty well here in Chesapeake. I'll say overall, our city council has met twice during the pandemic. They are having in-person meetings for now. I think they're still trying to figure out what's the best virtual meeting platform to utilize. Our EDA has met virtually just last week, and we continue to have a lot of communications like all of you via Zoom, WebEx, Microsoft Teams. So I'm not going to take a whole lot of time, but I just want to make sure that people understand we are definitely open for business. If you have a project that you need help with, please contact us. If you have any issues with inspections or permitting, we still want you to contact us. We'll work with the team over there, Jay Tate and his crew. They're very creative. We want to be very creative to solve whatever problems or concerns are out there. So just call us if you need us. That's all I'll say for now.
Fantastic. Thank you. So you did mention about contacting, and I heard that, throughout a lot of your presentations. Are there one source of communication that your jurisdictions are using? I know it may have been Jared who said, hey, economic development is here for a very good reason. Use us. We'll help guide you through the process. Do you all find that that's a very similar situation for you all? Or do you have other means of communication that your jurisdiction has open for the public?
I'll go first if I can. I will tell you, we've got, however you want to get in contact with us, you can. Obviously our economic development staff is working virtually, although I'm in the office today. But you can call our numbers. If you call my desk, it rolls automatically to my cell phone. We conduct a lot of meetings like this now. I will also say just yesterday, we kicked off something called Chesapeake Biz Chats. And it's really kind of an appointment setting system that will allow small businesses or anyone to contact our staff, and we can set appointments. I know it's kind of tough to do that in the current environment, but if you go to our website, chesapeakeva.biz, you can click on the Chesapeake Biz Chats, and you can set up quick 15-minute appointments to, if you got a quick issue and you want to talk to myself or someone else in our office, you can go there, put that question there. We'll get back to you ASAP or set up an appointment where it will be either over the phone, virtually like this. We can plug in other resources as well. So that's something that we're kicking off new, just to give people an additional way to get in contact with us. But all the traditional means of communication, they work as well.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback off that. Here in Norfolk, I mean, we, you can call our cell phones. So we're completely open. I'm open for, any way you want to communicate. If I get text, if you get emails, calls, we're here, and our team is here, completely open for business. One of the things that we are doing too is we created an internal outreach and business intelligence team. And so we've identified businesses in Norfolk. We've got about 3,600 businesses, active businesses with employees. And we've set up a team, and we've called probably about 450 of those businesses directly today. And so we started this right when the pandemic happened, started aggressively reaching out. One of the things that I at least noticed is right when this happened, I was getting bombarded with emails from organizations, what they were doing, basically, companies out there, here's what we're doing to help you, here's what we're doing to help you. And it was almost overwhelming, the emails just coming through. And so we decided to, hold off on directly emailing at that time and just calling people. So I felt like, the voice, calling somebody, developing that relationship with them was going to be a better way to communicate than just blasting out an email. Now we've got emails going, but for the first 30 days of this pandemic, we were actively just staying on the phone. We had a database. We were constantly reaching out to businesses. So again, if there is an issue, just reach out to us directly and we'll answer it.
As my colleagues were saying, we certainly are utilizing all those methods too. I think also another thing we've done is we've doubled up on our social media, trying to get the word out to the community, to our small businesses and large business and via LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter. And we've gotten a lot of response from that too. So we're open for business. If you have a specific problem, vbgov.com, go to the appropriate department that's dealing with it. Again, I think you'll find them responsive. And again, if not, we could certainly facilitate any conversation or any follow-up with any of our departments in the city.
I think from Suffolk's perspective, we're very much interested in making sure that people continue their relationships. The goal is that if you pick up the phone, call somebody, email, they get back to you. If they don't, please let us in economic development know, and we can help either create a relationship or make sure that we can connect some of those dots. One of the things I failed to mention, I think that we've all taken on new roles. Mine personally includes also being a part-time kindergarten teacher now. And so I worked with my kindergartner to put up a new sign for us. So if you can't find us, this is where you can find us in Suffolk. So let me know.
Fantastic.
From Portsmouth standpoint, I don't have the cute sign that my colleague has. And I feel like I want to say ditto to everything that everyone else said. What I will say is that one thing we want to make sure we do as business economic developers, and I think I'll speak again for my colleagues, is that we need to make sure we have the updated information for all of our businesses so we can make sure we can contact you the right way, whether it's via email, whether it's via telephone or social media. So I would ask that you make sure that you reach out to your economic development offices and update your information and make sure we have the updated information. One thing that we've tried to do consistently in Portsmouth is make sure from our office that we're sending out a regular update. So weekly, at least once a week, I send out an update on where we are as a community and where we are from a business standpoint with regards to projects, processes, and so forth. Like our colleagues in Virginia Beach, kind of doubling down on the social media standpoint and making sure that everyone knows that we are here. If you pick up the phone, any one of these localities will answer in some way, shape, or form. If you send us an email, we'll be here. So I think collectively as a region, and I'm going to echo what Chris said earlier, I can't be more proud of my colleagues and what we've done to come together. A few of us chat and text regularly to talk about some of these same issues. So just thank you to everyone for doing that.
Although it may look like a kindergartner wrote this, I actually. The reason I'm flashing this up is we started, and you can find this on our economic development website, insidetheowl.com. We started a Q&A session, which is really hopefully going to be an ongoing feature every other week or so. We'd like to produce one. They're only 15 to 20 minutes long, we expect in the future. But what we did this past week, and you can find it in numerous places on our social media, not just our webpage, is that we did a Q&A session with Jim Carroll, who's the Executive Director of the Small Business Development Center, connected with the Hampton Roads Chamber. And so we had set questions, mostly having to do with the loan programs and so on, because that was last week's big news. We'll probably do that again because it's going to continue to be big news. But it makes me, having listened to everybody, it makes me feel like probably what we ought to be doing in the near future is a Q&A with our folks in our planning and inspections world, zoning world, and having some set questions be helpful to the community, not just the business community, but folks that are by and large, on this, and in the audience on this today in the A&E world and similar business. So that's one thing. The other thing I didn't mention, we have a pre-designed process as well. And I went ahead and got a Zoom license so that we could have our pre-designed meetings completely virtually. And we think that's a platform too for, any kind of meeting with folks. If they want to meet with us via Zoom, we now don't have the kind of time restrictions that free version would compel you to keep, for example. So those are a couple of things that we're doing, pivoting in this new world.
Fantastic, thank you. Kevin, you mentioned that you've got a lot of stuff still coming in the door as far as plans and permits and that sort of thing. And I'll throw this out to everyone, as far as the different market sectors, and that's, commercial, retail, industrial, residential, are you seeing any trends behind anyone that's having more trouble than another, or any that are maybe doing equal or better in this scenario?
I think what we're seeing in Suffolk was kind of that continued wave that was coming before this all kind of happened. And so some of that stuff is continuing to move forward. On industrial, we've got about 600,000 square feet under review right now of new space. And then we continue to see some multifamily interest, finalizing some of that stuff that was kind of in the queue. But then we're seeing some new single family stuff that's now being submitted and some new rezonings that are also poking around. So retail's probably been the one slowdown. Obviously, we've had a couple hotel deals pump the brakes too, but
Right.
Residential and industrial seem to be still be ticking.
Well, and you mentioned the rezoning SUP process, and I know probably all the city and county attorneys have to individually go through that process of understanding what the state guidelines are as far as public meetings and what you can and can't do. Jared, you brought up the fact that some things that are necessities, like the Costco deal, you all felt like that was significant enough to be able to move forward. And I don't know if you all have been having these conversations about, ways to have these public meetings in, in a shape and a form and a fashion that everybody feels like they can participate. I've definitely heard of ways that your different jurisdictions are trying things. That can be phone calls and emails for people that can't show up in person, where they have one individual come through in the chamber at a time. There seems to be quite a few different things that are being tried. Any advice on where we're going with that, or do you think it's going to be a continued see how things evolve?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a bumpy ride. I think as the economy reopens, trying to make sure that you have access to the public, for certain meetings and you're open, but also being safe. So I think in every industry they're going to have to take a hard look at that. Restaurants, again, how do restaurants reopen? How does a lot of businesses reopen? It'll be interesting over the next 30 to 60 days.
What about on the public sector side of projects? You guys have in your jurisdictions things that have been approved, CIP budgets for projects. Have you been hearing how those are proceeding, or are they getting put on hold as well?
Yeah, from Virginia Beach's standpoint, it's really affecting our budget big time. We literally have folks working, 12 hours a day looking at that, adjusting the numbers day to day. And it's greatly going to affect the infrastructure build out, stormwater. Some of the big stormwater projects are going to be pushed down the road right now. Anything that's just not critical for the time being, I think you're going to see those numbers drastically changed. And again, we're getting ready. I believe all of our cities and counties run from a July 1 to June 30 fiscal year. So as we're winding out this year, we're really juggling the books to make sure this current year and this upcoming year that we do it so that we're not in a hole. So a lot of that is going on right now. Especially with the executive team over in City Hall.
Yeah, I'll say in Chesapeake, the same holds true. Our city council, city manager, they're reviewing next year's budget already, but, they've already identified a host of projects that are not going to be critical to really bringing back our local economy, and they've kind of put those projects on hold. I'm pleased to say that, though, that all critical infrastructure projects, transportation projects, things that will help development get back up and running sooner, all those projects are still a go for right now.
Yeah, I think Portsmouth we're the same way. Again, matching my colleagues, CIP, which used to stand for start with capital improvement, is now critical improvement. So if it doesn't meet that standpoint, then we're not going to move forward with it. So a lot of changes are coming to our budget as well. Dr. Patton and the finance team here have done a great job in sitting back and really assessing where we are. We too are looking at next year's budget already, and some tough decisions will have to be made.
Yeah, and again, I'll echo the same thing. And one example being just yesterday, our city manager introduced our budget for next year. And one big project, the Chrysler Hall renovation, it's a $50 million renovation of Chrysler Hall. It's been delayed a year. So we went ahead and moved the funding to the next fiscal year. So that's one example of a pretty major project that's not critical, but it's needed that we're going to be delaying the rest of the year.
Right. Well, and I know we've heard for many years that some kind of infrastructure, package could be in the works in some way, shape, or form. And And y'all brought up a good point about things that are critical infrastructure. Are there any thoughts about something that's shovel ready at this point that you all may be looking at in case those are happening, or have those been really vetted through quite a bit up to this point? So anything that you would have is kind of already ready.
Yeah, that's the case in Wight County, because what we're trying to do is we've had a permit, what we call a permit ready site, going for some time and ready, but we were trying to do another one. Luckily, the funds are already in place to get that complete within the next 12 months and be able to market it as permit ready. So in Wight, at least feel pretty good because the funding is already in place to get us to that point.
Yeah, in Portsmouth, one thing I think that is ready, it's not a site, but I think it's going to be critical for us going forward as a region, but specifically in Portsmouth, is our data ring, our fiber ring that we have put into the ground. That is fully funded, and City Council is continuing to push forward with that project. That's a $9 million project. The council is continuing to push forward. So from a readiness standpoint, we will be ready to connect into our partners over there in Virginia Beach and connect to that data ring that they have there. So from a regional standpoint, that's one project that we're excited about to continue moving forward.
You know, in Chesapeake, the site that we are aggressively promoting is still the Summit Point development, where Dollar Tree's corporate headquarters is located. We're hoping that a new 150,000 square foot office building will be completed hopefully before the end of the year. There are a lot of retail opportunities and office opportunities there. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with the office and retail market and how that's going to impact, but I think ultimately that'll be a great location for business in all of Hampton Roads right here in Chesapeake.
In Suffolk, a couple of projects come to mind. One would be a site that we closed on with the G's group up in northern Suffolk called the Pointed Harbor View. And so they have started taking down trees and working on infrastructure. The road takes about 8 months or so. So hopefully they get ahead of the curve on that one. There's an apartment deal and a couple other things in the hopper. So to work on infrastructure right now is a great time. I think one of the things also to keep an eye on is there's a lot of chatter about a potential infrastructure package coming out of the White House. Thinking back about the Tiger grants that came out during the Great Recession, we went after a couple of them in Suffolk. One of the things that was maybe challenged was just the definition on infrastructure of what's shovel ready. And so I think maybe to your point, Mark, is that if you can get engineering in place so you can truly be shovel ready from the federal government's perspective, which is different from a locality, that's going to be interesting to see if that thing plays out and what that means for the Hampton Roads region.
From Virginia Beach, most everything that's in the pipeline that's ready to go is certainly going to continue to go. But again, looking to the future, our future plans, the next 1, 2, 3 years, we're taking a hard look at that, and some of that is getting pushed back just a little bit.
And then in Norfolk, you know, we've got, we just announced Town Bank taking the Norfolk Southern building right in the midst of the pandemic. So we are seeing, you know, big chunks of office space, still some demand there. I think we're more focused on redevelopment, you know, in Norfolk. So it's really hard to have true shovel-ready sites. But we have some strategic areas that we're looking at that we're going to continue to pursue. The military circle area, I think, is very strategic for us in Norfolk as we look towards the future and as we come out of this recession. And we're also continuing to move forward with the St. Paul's redevelopment, which is the 1,800 public housing units adjacent to downtown.
As I'm going through and I'm kind of looking at some of the questions that come in, I guess some, you know, revolve around whether or not certain, you know, meal taxes may be waived per jurisdiction, if there's any other type of, you know, financial incentive packages that may be coming from the state or any local jurisdictions. Have you all heard of anything that's in the works right now that people might be interested to hear about?
In Norfolk, we're delaying taxes and fees, but not waiving them. So people have mentioned, the budget impacts the local government and the state. So I think, because of the impacts to the state and local budgets, it's going to be really hard for us to come out of pocket with additional incentives. And so we're really looking towards the federal government and the SBA for major grant programs.
I think in Chesapeake, we're taking the same approach. We did at our last council meeting waive penalties and interest on quarterly real estate tax payments. We have not done anything with meals tax or lodging tax, primarily because those are taxes in trust. But we are trying to see exactly how this latest round of federal funding will work out for businesses. And we're contemplating launching a local grant program to assist some of the small businesses that, for whatever reason, can't take advantage of the federal programs.
Our main incentive from Virginia Beach is our EDIP, Economic Development Investment Program, mainly for job creation and investment. We're looking at alternative ways to help our companies, maybe from that pot of money. Again, it's an exploratory type of phase right now. But again, that's one thing we're looking maybe to tap to help small and other businesses in our community.
In Suffolk, well, we're currently working with the EDA on their budget that'll be approved or become operational July 1 about a potential grant program for our small business community impacted by the closures. The critical nature of it really comes down to timing. When is the right time to roll something out? And then the reality of how impactful you can be. It's so widespread, and what we can bring to it ends up being pennies on the dollar, which is still a benefit. And so that's kind of the way we're looking at it. So we hope to have some details worked out over the next 60, 90 days.
Portsmouth is doing the same, meeting with the Economic Development Authority and really looking at what can we do from a timing standpoint, from a funding standpoint, as we look at our budget and moving forward. We really want to understand the impact that the federal money and the SBA money will have on our local businesses, and then see where we can fill maybe that gap. So I say stay tuned on that.
Yeah, out of Wight's perspective, well, we saw, maybe some of you saw that Danville implemented something this past week. And so I'm in research mode when it comes to that sort of thing. I've been wanting to do a revolving loan program that doesn't exist in the county yet for some time. So question now becomes, it is a lot about timing, but also then what's the target for that? And to what degree is that more of a recovery kind of program versus just your more regular revolving loan program?
Fantastic, thank you. So we're kind of getting close to the end of our time here. I wanted to, at least go back around with everyone. We'll do reverse order. We'll start with Stephen and, do some final closing comments. I did have, if you could blend into that, a question from Joe Hines. He's a principal in charge of our economic development here at Timmons Group that you all know very well. And, Joe's question to you guys, maybe to give you a little bit in your closing remarks, given all the momentum that Hampton Roads and the state really has been building in economic development over the last couple of years, what are some of those opportunities in your specific locality that you think could really be a driver for helping this economy coming out of this situation? Stephen, you want to start?
Sure. I will say that in Chesapeake, the big issue for us remains having the necessary product to attract businesses and to grow our existing businesses. I mean, I will tell you, coming out of this, right now, we're trying to position ourselves, as most people are, we're trying to position ourselves for the recovery. We don't know when it's going to happen. We don't know how it's going to happen, but we're trying to take proactive steps to make sure that we're ready for the recovery when it happens. A big part of that for us is making sure that we have available real estate product, making sure that we have the available sites for our businesses that want to grow, that they'll be able to grow. I'm really pleased to say that, we are starting to get a lot more momentum in the southern part of Chesapeake on the Frank Williams site. Many of you know that's a 4,000 acre site down on the Virginia-North Carolina border. We're working very closely with all of the utility providers to make sure that we can extend utilities down to that site. I think it's a real game changer, not just for Chesapeake and Hampton Roads, but really for the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. So we're starting to put a little bit more energy in that. We've had a lot of things that have been on our plate, things like Amazon, things like other projects that we've recently announced. But now, during this time, we're in a position where we can dedicate a lot more time and resources and effort to making sure that that project goes forward as quickly as it possibly can. So,
Fantastic. Thank you. Kevin?
So I think I'd mentioned earlier, we've got 600,000 square feet currently under permit review. This would open up the western entrance of the Virginia Port Logistics Park, formerly known and owned by Centerpoint. And so we're excited about that. We still have about 20 million square feet of space that a building could sit in that's entitled with water and sewer for industrial development. So we feel well positioned there. We're seeing Northern Suffolk on some projects with some rezonings and some early infrastructure work kick off. And we're also working on an 11-acre redevelopment in downtown Suffolk, the old Golden Peanut site, which a group out of Western Virginia, or I guess the western part of the state is working on right now. And that's nearing completion on permit review as well. And so there's a lot to be busy on. I think timing really is everything. So things under permit that you can start construction seem to kind of make sense still. If you're about ready to open, that's probably not ideal. So we're fairly fortunate, not completely across the board, but there's a lot of opportunity to get construction. If you can get funding in place, that's a good place to be. And then looking about what the future looks like. So I think Hampton Roads, in my opinion, is much more well positioned in a recovery scenario under this versus maybe '08. And so I look forward to seeing those type of opportunities come to fruition as the clouds begin to part and some sort of normalcy, depending on what that is, takes place.
Thank you. Raymond?
From a site perspective, Corporate Landing still has sites available there right across the street. The Taylor Farm property, getting ready to do some infrastructure over there. Also on the horizon is a Brown Farm, which is over close to our municipal center. We've had a lot of interest in that recently, and discussions are underway on that, and our Innovation Park that's over there that way too. But what we're most excited about is several industry clusters we've been working. The subsea cable, of course, with the coronavirus here, communications as we're doing today is very, very needed and important. And actually, at first, we're stressed with all the activity. Certainly, those companies are very aware of that, and that the way we'll be doing business in the future will probably involve more remote working. So the need for that is going to be a lot greater. Data centers, we're getting a lot of interest from that too. And the offshore wind has been another exciting opportunity for us here, and will certainly be for the entire region. Ørsted, who is the main contractor to Dominion, is right now have set up a camp by the Lesnar Bridge to be able to open an operations center for the pilot project, 2 turbines that will, they're on the way here now to start to put them in within the next few weeks. So that's a great opportunity also. Global Technical Systems, many of you have heard about that the last year or two. They're building, about 160,000 square feet on Bird Neck Road. It's about 85% complete. So they're going to be open later this summer, hiring over the next few months over 1,000 employees. So that's a big boost, not only for our community, but for jobs for the entire region. So we're really excited about that too. And then cybersecurity, again, with all this remote communications, it's critical that you keep it secure. And we're fortunate that we have a really strong cluster in cybersecurity that we feel we're going to be growing and expanding in the future too.
Fantastic. Thank you, Raymond. Chris?
Yeah, I think a couple of thoughts having to do with this question. First off, we are not seeing a let up from our state and regional economic development partners, at least not here, in prospective activity, folks who are interested in our land and to the degree there are buildings. So it's been interesting. I'm pretty sure nobody really said that, but we haven't seen a let up on prospect activity coming at us. And so that's great to see. When we talk about product, Isle of Wight's quite land rich when it comes to product, especially publicly held land. What we don't have are the buildings, and often what we see with this prospective activity with site selectors, they're coming at us first with, we want a building of X number of square feet. If you got one, great, let's start with that. If not, okay, I guess we can talk about build to suit. So it's the kind of pressure I'm curious about as we move into the next phase of coming out and recovery, what kind of pressures there will be, how it might be a little bit different, and we might see some localities go back into the world of speculative public-private partnerships on buildings, spec buildings, shell buildings. So others might disagree with that, but I am very curious to see what the new pressures bring to bear on that kind of activity. The other thing is that's all hardware. The software aspect of it, the employment-based aspect of it is we're all the tide has dropped for everybody. We've gone from an incredibly low unemployment rate to one that everybody has to deal with that's much different now. So all of us in our professions, I think over the last decade, 2 decades, we have been more engaged with workforce development issues than we ever have before. I don't think that's ever going to change from this point forward. So I kind of leave that as a thought for everybody with respect to what we do in our positions.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Jared?
Yeah, I think, we're well positioned here in this region, I think, to come out of this recovery, partly due to what we generally look at as a weakness, our lack of diversity in the economy. The port, military, and shipbuilding really, I think, are going to help stabilize this region. We're thankful that right now we have, military spending and people still getting paid when this downturn hit. So I think, we will not see the trough I think that other regions will see. With that, we're really going to be focused on business retention and expansion for the next 18 months, really trying to ensure business survivability. And as I mentioned, really trying to focus on some strategic transformational development sites like Military Circle, areas that as the economy picks back up, we can look to public-private partnerships and really transform various parts of the city. Thanks.
Thank you, Jared. Robert?
Again, echoing a number of things that my colleagues said, we're ultimately going to make sure that we do our best to get back to Portsmouth being Portsmouth. So we're going to make sure we focus on those small businesses, working on the existing businesses, making sure they can sustain. We're going to continue to focus on freezer storage. That seems to be a big play for us with the being adjacent to the port. Our first medical cannabis oil dispensary should be opening in the next several months. We have data centers coming as well to match up with our high-speed cable that is going in. At the same time, we're looking at what we feel are some transformational opportunities as well. Certainly we talk about retail, but when we talk about things for people to do, this entertainment district as we go along several months from now and really push that through, we think that will be a game changer. And as well, offshore wind, PMT or Portsmouth Marine Terminal, and working with the folks out at the port, we really think that's going to be positioned to be a hub, if you will, for offshore wind. So we're excited about where we're going to be and where we're going. But again, I think to touch on what Jared just stated, and really what all of my colleagues have stated, is the region as a whole, we are diverse, and at the same time, we're similar in some ways. But I think the big thing is that we have sat and spoken and we talked and we really discussed how we can work together to bring this region back to where it needs to be. And we're all focused on the same things. We're focused on the business community. So I'll end by saying just thank you to everyone on the call and on this webinar today. And again, thank you to Timmons for putting this together. I think it's a real eye opener and a real game changer for us going forward.
Thank you. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I can't express how thankful I am for you all to do this. It does take a lot of time to prepare and get in practice and all the things that you all have done to make this very successful. And I know you've got a lot going on, a lot on your plate right now. So I really appreciate everything you've done. I hope our audience has found this informative. There are some, questions still out there that we're just not going to have time to get into. I would encourage anybody who does have questions still, reach out, contact the staff at the local jurisdiction that you're at, ask those questions. They are there to give you the answers. With that, Heather, you have any other final remarks?
Two quick things. Thank you, gentlemen. I do think by looking and monitoring the chats and questions that have come in, your offices are going to get some phone calls and emails today. Just some very little granular type topics that people have questions about. So be prepared for those. Thank you. To all of our attendees, thank you so much today for coming. Again, if you're looking for a continuing education unit, visit our virtual events web page on timmons.com website. And those who are interested and are able to attend next Tuesday morning, we'll be having a commercial coffee again, and be on the lookout for that. We'll be up on the peninsula visiting with our folks and our leadership up there. So hope to see everyone. Thanks again for attending. Mark?
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Killing me.
Cornball.